first one that we're going to go with, if it works for you, is one of the bridge models, which I believe you guys refer to as the Legacy Bridge.
Yeah.
And really quick to show everybody, if you're not familiar with Stuhrling Original, I go back with this brand as well. In fact, I was the guy that first showed them on television, which would have been in the really early 2000s. And Stuhrling does a lot of things right. One of the things they do right, and like I'm telling you something, Larry, is the packaging you guys do.
Yeah, the packaging has gone through quite a few changes, but as you move on and grow your business and you have different avenues of distribution, well, you know, those boxes that everybody loves, those big 12-inch long boxes, 4x4x12s, you know, that's not something that is compatible with, you know, old brick and mortar retail.
Larry, I want to go ahead, if we can, and let's jump into the watch now. For practicality, I'm going to show you two of the color options here for demonstration purposes.
Sure.
We're going to do the rose, we're going to do the black, but I should comment on this very quickly as we jump into this. Two things. First of all, you're going to see a link to the right, and all you have to do is click on that, guys, and you're going to see the entire show, and there's some monster show pricing going on today. It's all going to fall down, so you guys don't have to wait for it to air. If you want to go ahead and jump into it, you certainly can. Also, I want to mention that we are working now with PayPal credit. So if you guys want the equivalent of those payments, we can arrange, if you qualify, to have 6 months interest-free, nothing down, no payments, and that's going to be on all the stuff we're going to show you guys today. And in particular, I imagine the Devil Ray Tourbillon coming up a bit later on. That could be of interest. So just check out our website for that. Obviously, you want to sign up for our email list and get those updates too. So Larry, let's jump into it here. And I happen to have grabbed the black one. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the history of the mechanical tourbillon, and I know Larry's got a ton of stuff about the Stuhrling he's going to share with you guys. The actual bridge, I only recently found this out. It was invented by Vincent Calabrese, I've met him a couple of times, an amazing watchmaker. Google his stuff, look him up. He's incredible. And this guy is self-taught. He didn't work with one of the major watch houses or anything else, and he comes out of nowhere and creates this bridge, which became, I think it was voted like Innovation of the Year going a few years back. And now, to be clear, I'm not implying he has anything to do with this one, Larry, but what a legacy you guys leapt on. And obviously his version is 5 figures, and your version here today, and let's talk about this briefly. You guys are offering this at a extraordinary discount with us today. So this is it's for bargain hunters, it's for watch guys, it's for everybody.
Well, nicely said, Tim. You know, where do I start with this? You know, it seems like in watchmaking, almost from the beginning, there's been this fascination with, you know, how much of the movement can we cut away and still have a functioning watch? And as you know, Tim, that's ultimately where skeletons were born from, skeleton watches, that is, as far as, you know, competitions, and they would cut away all the extraneous metal parts and then decorate what's remaining. And it's like the more you can cut away and still have a functioning movement and not a quartz movement. And as you know, there are quite a few quartz movements out there with the bridge look that's running off of a little battery in there. That's, you know, that's not what this is.
GD2 did one of those.
Yeah, and that's not what this is. This is a pure mechanical movement. But the point I'm getting at is there's always been this fascination with, you know, how much can we cut away and still have a functioning watch? There's a watch out there on the market, you know, really high-end piece that's in the 6-figure range that, you know, you're just baffled at how it could even function. There's like nothing there. But then, you know, a while back, I don't know how many years ago, but quite a few years ago, one of the high-end Swiss brands came out with this, quote, bridge look. And like you're saying, we're calling it a bridge because the movement is in a linear configuration and it's cutting across from 9 to 3. Now, we've done it from 12 to 6, 9 to 3. It's just a function of, you know, rotating the bridge or the movement. But in any case, that's why it's called a bridge, because it makes a bridge across the watch. But like I said, a high-end company made one, and it was in, you know, 5 figures, you know, over $10,000, obviously. And it was very popular. And as you know, Tim, once something hits, you know, everybody wants to do it. And then once everybody wants to do it, for most watch companies, okay, and I put Stuhrling in this category, for most watch companies, we don't manufacture our own movements, okay? So you have movement making companies out there that are going to make the movements to allow most watch companies to get into that game. But they're not cheap. You know, it's a more rare movement, it's a more expensive movement. And so you can purchase the movement and you can have a bridge watch like we do. But the difference, the way we do it versus other companies is our exclusive manufacturing partner, George J. von Berg. And whenever you want me to go off on that, I certainly will. But that's what makes the difference with
feel
Stuhrling.
free. Because, we don't really have a time limit here, Larry. You can say
okay,
whatever
well,
you want.
that's really what makes the difference. I mean, there are other companies out there that purchase this exact same movement, okay, and they'll give you a bridge look, but they're paying a company to make the watch for them, where they just put it into the case and that's it. With George, as you know, he has also got his own movement making company, a Swiss movement making company that's been in business since the late 50s, like 1959. His grandfather was the first company to properly organize a production line, an assembly line for movement making. And that's where it started from. And that's the Claro Manufacturing Company. To this day, it's still in business. They only make one movement now. They just specialize 3 hands and a date. But the point that the fact that George is a movement making company, a Swiss movement making company, as well as our manufacturing partner, he has the wherewithal to take those movements in a semi-assembled condition and then do the final assembly and do the final calibrations, and then all the different components of the watch being manufactured, being brought in by George, and then everything being assembled, as opposed to one company just putting together a prefabbed watch, so to speak. Okay, and that's the difference. And in that way, Stuhrling is unique, and we stand at the very top. You have the Swiss way up here, right? You've got the Japanese probably in the middle, and then at the bottom you've probably got the Chinese. But what a lot of people don't realize is that within that whole Chinese structure, there's a very top thin line. Okay, and when you get to the elite there, it is a different make, and that's what we are. We're at the very, very top of that piece, and also we do Swiss goods too from George. So we have a real advantage. The make on our pieces, we'll put it up against anybody's make, and that's really important, because when you're buying a watch that is assembled in Hong Kong or the Far East, right? You better get the best, because after the best, it's like falling off a cliff. There is a lot of junk out there, okay? And within 2 or 3 months, your watch is no good. This is manufactured by a Swiss company with Swiss technology, Swiss supervision, Swiss engineering, to the Swiss standards. And I say that with absolute faith and confidence. You mentioned my Night Owl TV project. I've had George on my show a couple of times. And it's always great when we have George on the show, because people can then see what I'm talking about. George very well. You've met him many, many times.
First of all, George is one of those gentle giants, I think, in the watch industry. And if you haven't checked him out, I'm hoping on talkaboutwatches.com that we're going to get the actual name George J. von Berg watches. But if you go back with Larry and myself, and remember, for example, I was doing shows at JTV for a while. George actually was here in the United States, and he not only came on the show, he'll just hang out with you. This is one of the most unassuming, nicest individuals you're ever going to meet. And you're looking at this and you're going to go, that guy is George J. von Berg, and yet he'll just hang out and he'll talk about watches or whatever you want. Yeah. Larry, I'm so glad you're getting into what sets Stuhrling apart and why. I've been a fan. I've collected now for, I guess, the better part of 15 years. Stuhrling is George has so much to do with what puts you guys out at the forefront of the industry.
He does. He has a lot to do with it. And then when you add in the leadership of Mr. Fisher, it's an incredible combination between the two of them, because Mr. Fisher, as you know, is he's steeped very, very deeply in the watch industry. Besides his Stuhrling original company, he's very much into the importing high-end Swiss brands. So,
yeah, he is.
you know that. And
yeah, I love visiting his office.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. But with his passion and George's ability, and again, this is also, it's hard to communicate all of this in one quick show like this, Tim, but you realize this, we could literally have this product made at half the price that we have it made at. People think, well, it's Hong Kong, it's from China, it's cheap goods, it's no good, it's just cheap, they're making a bunch of profit or whatever. That's not the case at all. Our margins are really, really tight. They have to be. But, when you're paying a Swiss company to make watches in China, I don't know, George and all that, but if you've ever worked with the Swiss, you have to realize, man, you cannot rush the Swiss, okay? you'll get it when it's ready. You'll get it when they're good and ready to give it to you.
That is
Because
so true, by the way.
yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, they're such obsessed with time and watches and timekeeping and all that kind of stuff. If it's not absolutely perfect, you're not going to get it. And this goes back to the whole, quartz crisis, the Japanese quartz crisis back in the 70s or 1971, 72, in that range there. When the Japanese invented the quartz movements, it put a lot of Swiss companies out of business. And George's grandfather, his father really extended it, but his grandfather was one of the 5 charter members of the Hong Kong Swiss Watch Federation. This was even before the quartz crisis. And what that Hong Kong Swiss Watch Federation was all about was it was about teaching and training the Chinese manufacturers, how to, produce parts, how to produce watches and parts and things like that, components, so that, they could compete. And that Hong Kong Swiss Watch Federation did play a very important role in actually saving the Swiss watch industry. And the point is, there were many Swiss companies at that time that had opened up assembly factories in Hong Kong. In 1998, China overtook Hong Kong. It was under British rule, as you know. And when that happened, pretty much the Hong Kong Swiss Watch Federation, within a year, they became defunct. There was like no more need for it, because now that China pretty much owned Hong Kong and took it over, it made no sense to go through this Swiss Federation or go to these Swiss-owned manufactories in Hong Kong because it was owned by China now. And it doesn't make sense to pay double the price to make a watch. So
Larry,
they're pretty much all
interject
those
for 1
manufacturers.
second. Can you give me your last thoughts on the bridge? Because I'm really seeing some pretty significant movement on this, and I don't want to risk a sellout or an oversell here. So I can get your last thoughts very quickly, and then we're going to come right back to what you're teaching us.
Well, with the bridge movement, it's all about, how little can we, have to have a functioning watch, a pure mechanical functioning watch. You'll notice there's no rotor on the back to obscure any aspect of your view of the back of the movement there. You'll also notice on the front of the movement, you have this deeply engraved scroll work on the front that's not a hydraulic scroll work. It's actually CNC machining scroll work, which is much more expensive than the hydraulic. And so it's properly made. It's in a linear configuration. It actually has a smaller balance wheel and a smaller mainspring in order to, again, to make it as minimalistic as possible. Okay. So it really is, it's an homage, it's an homage to those more expensive 5-figure high-end Swiss brands that make a bridge look, instead of spending $20,000, on a high-end Swiss brand bridge, you've got that same look made by a Swiss company for just a fraction of that.
Well, really quick, let me run the math in you guys. I should have got into this sooner. This bridge, upon the release from Stuhrling, the official retail is $1,095 US. Through talkaboutwatches.com today, you guys are picking it up for just $109. And here's the thing, every watch on the show today, shipping included. So you're basically looking at a roughly 90% off, and shipping is included. Obviously, a lot of people are getting in on this.